TV6 Investigates, you may have heard of a group of 4 young men known as the Rapid River Four. All of them died within a year of each other from March 2024 to January of this year. All of them had taken fentanyl. With the rise of this deadly drug, we're looking into the unseen threat from fentanyl and what resources are available to keep everyone, regardless of their struggles with addiction, safer. It's a topic that can seem removed from many of us, but one woman says her nephew, one of the Rapid River Four, is proof that fentanyl is already a threat to our community.
Very competitive, love basketball, baseball, all sports. Silly. If you were mad at him, he made you laugh to get out of it. Yeah, he was a good kid that just took a bad path. In my nephew's case, we knew he had an addiction problem. He ended up getting a phone call from somebody he had hung out with before. They went and picked him up, and when he come back home, he wasn't gone for very long. When he come back home, he seemed impaired, went to bed, and his mom and sister found him in the morning.
Kelly Dietrich says Mason, her nephew, took his final breaths with fentanyl in his system. But this story isn't unique. The CDC reports synthetic opioids, like fentanyl, contribute to 70% of drug-related deaths. State data shows 2,931 people died from an opioid overdose in Michigan in 2023. And in the Upper Peninsula, it's a growing problem. Zachary Blacksmith is the Michigan State Police laboratory manager. He's been working there for 14 years and has seen the drug trends change throughout his career. One of those changes makes it harder for street drug users to identify what they're taking.
We went from a place where we were dealing with legitimate pharmaceuticals that were diverted and used in the drug world to now we just have clandestine tablets, and it's very rare that we would see a legitimate pharmaceutical has been diverted.
The lab sees mostly drugs cut or combined with other drugs. For example, this is heroin. But from testing, we know it's also combined with fentanyl and diphenhydramine. That's Benadryl.
A cutting agent, right, lets you take, if you've got maybe a pound of heroin and you are an entrepreneuring drug person and you say, hey, I would like to make more money with this, and I take 2 pounds of diphenhydramine and I add them together, now I can sell this heroin for 3 times the amount because I've added all this extra material to it.
Emily Pratt is the health educator at the Marquette County Health Department. She tells me her department is seeing the same thing. People thinking they're taking one illegal substance and finding out it's combined with others.
They can really probably just expect that there's fentanyl in there at this point, just with the landscape of drug supply across the country.
But why do people keep coming back to dangerous and illegal drugs, even when they know the risks? Aspirus Houghton's addiction specialist, Kirk Clemmy, says it all comes down to chasing dopamine.
What happens is that when you start using, you get those increased dopamine levels, and then your brain starts to change that those dopamine receptors decrease so that it takes more and more and more dopamine to get that effect, to even get to a point of where you want to get out of bed in the morning, where you want to function.
That's what causes addiction, trying to find your next dopamine spike. You can find that spike in any activity, from shopping to using illegal drugs. Dr. Clemmy says the faster something increases your dopamine, the more addictive it is. And he says deciding to stop can only be the user's decision.
When somebody's ready, there's nothing wrong, you can say. When somebody's not ready, there's nothing right, you can say. People have to be ready. People have to be ready to make changes.
When people aren't ready to make changes, their decisions can be deadly. That's why health departments give out fentanyl test strips. These are used by people who are still in the grips of addiction, but are not trying to take fentanyl. They help determine if there is fentanyl in a drug, but it does not tell you how much fentanyl there is and what else it might be combined with. It's like a chocolate chip cookie. This cookie has a lot of chocolate chips, and this one has significantly less. If I take this part of the cookie, it could seem like there's no chocolate at all. But if I take this part, there's no doubt it's got chocolate chips, and maybe more than I bargained for.
Fentanyl kind of shows up in your drug supply similar to that, where it can be kind of more concentrated in one area and less in another.
That's why experts say if you haven't yet beat addiction, you should test what you're using and take other safety precautions.
Things like carrying naloxone, using with other people around so you're not alone, starting low, like using a test shot, using less than you maybe normally would, until you're able to kind of like see how you respond to the substance or what effects that it has.
But this isn't a safe way to do drugs because there's no such thing. In the lab, the MSP uses special equipment to know what's in a substance. It's called a gas chromatography mass spectrometer. It's a machine that breaks down each drug and compares it with a spectra.
This is what I'm looking at. It says, okay, well, this is heroin. This is how heroin fragments. We know that. We can look it up in an old book. It hasn't changed over, basically since mass spectrum and mass spectra was invented, right? So we can go look in an old book and say, yep, okay, here's the fingerprint. We know that this molecule is heroin.
Remember that heroin we were talking about earlier? We knew exactly what was in it because of this machine.
All right, we'd like to know what this is. We'll zoom in on it. We will find out what the mass spectrum of that material is. Okay, I recognize that from looking at it, but if I run a library search, I find out that that's fentanyl. So this powder that was received in the laboratory is a fentanyl-laced heroin.
No average person would have access to this kind of machine. And while no drug use is safe, fentanyl tests might have made a difference in Mason's life. For his aunt, that could have been within her control when she had none over his addiction.
I've realized through losing my nephew, I don't have the power to stop them from doing it. That's something they have to do on their own.
Do you think the test strips would have made a difference?
Yes, if he'd used them. I don't even know if he knew about them, if they were available. Talking to some of the other parents that have lost kids, it doesn't sound like they knew that they were available either. And every one of them were alone, when it happened. So, and I don't believe any of them were looking to take fentanyl.
Kelly and health experts urge you to talk to your loved ones about the dangers of unregulated drugs and have open discussions about addiction. And when it's between living with addiction or dying, they remind you fentanyl test strips and other harm reduction strategies are available at any Upper Michigan Health Department. For other resources and locations, go to our website, uppermichigansource.com.